Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Life's Good Award Conference. Please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Seo Mi-sorang. You can call me Natasha. And it's an absolute honor and delight to be serving as your MC for this very momentous occasion, the very last leg of Life's Good Award, which is part of LG Electronics' Global Innovation Challenge, aimed at discovering and promoting innovative solutions to the global challenges faced by our society and our planet. This global contest began back in September of last year, and applications ended in October. After 3 months of intense deliberation and evaluation, the 4 finalists were announced this year, just a few weeks ago, on the 4th of this month at CES. Today is the grand finale of Life's Good Awards, and this is what we have in store for today. We have world-renowned judges who will deliver special lectures to us, and the 4 presenters, the 4 companies, finalists, they will deliver pitches for their companies. And of course, we will end with the award ceremony where we announce the rank. Today's conference is held in a dual format with on-site participants here at the Magog LG Science Park and online participants joining us via YouTube. And for your convenience, for our on-site participants, we do provide simultaneous interpretation to and from Korean. So to use this, please make notice of the receivers placed on the table in front of you. And for Korean, tune into channel 1. And for English, channel 2. And to all presenters and speakers and finalists who will be talking on the stage this afternoon, we have a special request. Please remember to take your masks off before you come up to the stage. All right. We will begin with a short introductory video of the Life's Good Award as well as the 4 finalists. We ask for your attention to the screen.
Alone, we can do so little. Together, we can change the world. Countless souls are working to find solutions to make a better life for all and for our planet. From 61 nations, 334 teams, we want to recognize 4 teams in our Life's Good Award.
Salutum may have the solution for Green Earth. They want to sustain the convenience of plastic while eliminating the waste. Their bioplastic dissolves and degrades in water, leaving almost no trace behind.
I want to eliminate plastic waste for good.
DOT Incorporated dreams of an equal world. They believe the visually impaired have the right to see what we see. Their portable device, 20 times smaller and 10 times lighter than the legacy devices, gives the visually impaired unprecedented access to visual information, anytime and anywhere.
This will allow the visually impaired to reconnect with their families and with society.
Day One Lab is a group of people who are obsessed with plastic. They want to completely change our perception of plastic. Their plastic alternative is fabricated from natural materials, and it will return to nature after its life as a product.
Let's begin day 1 of World Without Plastics.
Nona Technologies has a new take on desalination. They want to provide fresh water on demand for all. Their portable device can make seawater drinkable.
We hope to make a difference for the people in the harshest environments.
For our planet and our people, Life's Good Award. LG.
Yes, I think we would all agree with me when I say that we were able to see how LG Electronics and the 4 global innovators, the finalists, they are continually striving to find solutions for the global challenges that we currently face, both in terms of the societal problems and the environmental problems. So we certainly look forward to the solutions that have been innovated by our 4 companies, the finalists. All right, before we proceed further, I would like to acknowledge our distinguished guests here in attendance. As I call their names, everyone please join me in greeting them with a warm round of applause. First, from LG Electronics, we are joined by the CSO of LG Electronics, Mr. Sam-Soo Lee. Continuing on, the CTO of LG Electronics, Mr. Byung-Hoon Kim. And now the judging panel, first the professors. From the Professor of London Business School, Mr. Alex Edmonds. Professor of Cambridge Judge Business School, Mr. Christopher Marquis. And Professor of Hanyang University Business School, Mr. Hyun-Sang Shin. And now the LG executives who participated as the judges. Senior Vice President and Head of Global Marketing Center, Mr. Jung-Seok Lee. Researcher Fellow at Devices and Materials Lab of Device Materials Research Center, Mr. Jae-hyung Lee. ESG Strategy Department Leader, Mr. Sung-min Hong. And last but not least, please give a big round of applause to CEO of LG Technology Ventures, Mr. Dong-Soo Kim. Once again, thank you very much to all judges for using your expertise for a fair and just evaluation. Next, we have the welcoming address, which will be delivered by the head of Global Marketing Center of LG Electronics, Mr. Jung-Seok Lee. Please greet him with a big round of applause.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Life's Good Awards. Thank you for all being here today, both in person and online. Life's Good is at the heart of what we strongly believe in at LG Electronics. Through our technology and innovations, we strive to help everyone experience life's good in every moment of their lives. Our efforts extend beyond improving people's quality of life to addressing concerns about our planet's future. LG announced the Better Life Plan 2030, which laid out detailed action plans for the betterment of the planet, such as achieving carbon neutrality and proactive usage of recycled materials. We also continue to improve usability, ensuring our products and solutions are accessible to everyone. We are adding voice guidance and braille instruction to more products. Also, our annual Global IT Challenge strives for a more diverse and inclusive society. Even so, making a better life for all isn't something LG can do alone. We must work together with experts in various fields and innovators from all over the world. That's why we initiated the Life's Good Awards. A total 334 teams from 61 nations applied with solutions in both the innovation for people and innovation for the planet categories. As I reviewed the solutions from all applicants, I was surprised by the sheer number of we received and the quality of these potential opportunities. It was incredibly inspiring to see the high degree of ingenuity shown by each team through their innovative solutions. I tangibly felt that creating a better life for all was more than just a dream. but something we can make into reality. Here with me today are Professor Alex Edmonds of London Business School, Professor Christopher Marquis from Cambridge Judge Business School, Professor Shin Hyun-sang from Hanyang University, as well as executives from LG who served as judges. Will it have a positive impact on the world? Is it based on innovative technology? Is it feasible? On the basis of these three criteria, we took about a month to review them and selected 4 finalists. At CES 2023 this year, we announced 4 finalists and briefly shared their solutions with the world. And now, it's time for the finalists to introduce their solutions in detail. Keep an eye on these 4 finalists today. They are true innovators who continue to challenge themselves in their respective fields to make the world a better place. The same goes for the judges who sincerely reviewed these solutions together. Once again, thank you all. I also hope each of you in attendance will gain fresh ideas for your own respective fields while listening to the presentation and discussions today. Again, we at LG Electronics promise to continue to do our best to create a better life for all through collaborations with many global innovators. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chong-Seok Lee, Head of Global Marketing Center at LG Electronics. Yes, as was mentioned, positive impact, innovative technology, and feasibility were the 3 pillars through which we made our evaluations for selecting the 4 finalists who will help us move into that better future. All right, now let's meet the 3 professors who will explain the purpose of Life's Good Award. First, London Business School professor Alex Edmonds will give a talk titled Grow the Pie. Please welcome Professor Alex Edmonds.
Thank you very much. It's a huge pleasure to be here and to be involved in this award, trying to solve some of the biggest problems facing society and the planet. So what I'm going to speak about is the power of purpose in encouraging innovation, not just to serve wider society, but also to be good for business. So my job is a professor of finance. And so finance is about creating shareholder value, making money, serving profits. And so I often think that this is at the expense of wider society. But what I like to highlight is by having a sense of purpose, companies can deliver both profits for shareholders, but also value for wider society. So how can that be? So let me start with an example. So I'm going to take us back to 2003. And Vodafone, which is the UK telecoms company, they noticed that in Kenya, Kenyan citizens were using their phones to transfer mobile minutes to each other as a form of currency. And this gave them an idea. What if we could develop a technology that would allow people to transfer not mobile minutes, but actual cash? Because at the time, 15 million Kenyan adults were unbanked. They had to rely on cash, which could be forged or lost or stolen. So if they could pull it off, the social impact would be huge. And indeed, 4 years later, Vodafone launched M-Pesa, which is a mobile money service that allowed people to transfer money from phone to phone just as easily as we could send a text message or send a photo today. And this completely transformed citizens' lives. So within the first 7 years, it lifted 200,000 households out of poverty. And many of these households were headed up by women because it allowed them to move from agriculture to business and retail, so there was a large effect on gender equality. But also, interestingly, this was something that later led to profit for Vodafone. Because even though they generally started this idea to solve a social problem of financial inclusion in Kenya, ultimately they were able to monetize it and turn it into a profit. Why? Because if you create value for society, ultimately somebody will be willing to pay you for this. So why am I starting my talk with this example? It's to get us to ask the following two questions. So the first question is, how much value did M-Pesa create for wider society? And the second question is, if Vodafone did not launch M-Pesa, what would have been the damage to its ESG rating or reputation? I'm not going to poll anybody because I'm sure people would agree with the answer. So for the first question, how much value did M-Pesa create for wider society? A huge amount of value. It lifted 200,000 households out of poverty, and it contributed to gender equality. But if I turn to the second question, what would have been the public outrage if Vodafone had not launched M-Pesa? It would have been nothing. Right? There would have been no media backlash, there would have been no customer boycott, nobody would have ever put Vodafone in trouble because nobody would have even thought it was possible to launch this crazy idea of banking without a bank. And so this is my view of purpose. Often we think, well, what does it mean to be a responsible business? We want to answer that second question. We don't want to get involved in a scandal. We want to avoid an environmental disaster. We want to avoid mistreating our workers. We want to avoid underpaying our taxes. We often think, what is it to be a responsible business in 2023? We do no harm. We don't harm the planet. We don't harm people. But I'm saying that this is not enough. Right? It is not enough for a company to say, I am doing no harm to society. Instead, companies need to answer the first question and to actively do good. And so this is why, for me, it's a huge pleasure to be involved in this competition, because these are innovations which are actively creating value for society. Nobody was forcing the 4 finalists to come up with these ideas. They didn't need to do this to avoid a scandal or a media backlash. They instead did this in order to create value and positively impact our world. And so why do I think this is the correct way to think about purpose and responsibility today? It is because of the theme of growing the pie, which is the theme of the talk. So what is the pie? Well, we can think about the pie as the value that a company creates, and we can divide this between profits to investors, that's the blue, and value to wider society, that's the orange. And that could be something like fair wages, fair taxes, and fair prices. And we often think, well, what does it mean to be a responsible business? It means we split the pie more fairly. We pay workers more than we need to, we charge customers lower prices than we can get away with, and we might pay more taxes than the bare minimum. And absolutely, right, part of responsibility is a fair split of the pie. But I would argue that that is not enough. It is not enough for a company to think about responsibility as redistribution. Why? Because if purpose involves splitting the pie differently, then many CEOs won't want to do it. Right? Why would I want to do something that makes my company less profitable? And we have this big problem of greenwashing. Right? Companies claim, I'm going to serve wider society, but they don't put it into practice. And why would they? If purpose means my company will be less profitable, then let me just say some nice statements and never actually deliver. So this is why my view of responsible business is it's about growing the pie. Well, absolutely we do want to increase the orange, but the way we do this is not by giving a greater slice of what's already there, but through innovation, through excellence, through coming up with some crazy ideas, like banking without a bank, that's what Vodafone did, Why? Because the beauty of this is even though that those innovations were driven by the desire to serve society to increase the orange, by growing the pie, ultimately the blue increases as well and companies also become profitable. So what this is about is, can we find ways through innovation of solving social challenges, but in ways which also fulfill one of the primary purposes of business, which is to deliver returns to investors. Now you might think, well, if I'm defining purpose and responsibility as innovation, well, do we need a purpose to do this, right? Shouldn't any company want to be innovative? Isn't it enough to think about making money? Because if we want to make money, will that not drive us to innovate? So you might think, well, why do companies come up with electric cars? Well, even if you did not have a concern for the environment, you might still come up with electric cars. Why? Because you could just look at the economics of the car industry. You will know that there is profit to be made out of moving from traditional to electric cars, so you don't need a special purpose to do that. However, there are many innovations which you might not be able to justify with purely a financial calculation. If you go back to the idea of M-Pesa, right, what was the profit calculation from launching that? It would have been hugely negative. Right, the likelihood of being able to develop this technology was really low. Even if you did develop it, would you be able to make money from it, serving some of the poorest people in the world in Kenya? Indeed, Vodafone had a strategy back then, and their strategy was to expand in the West and to win spectrum license auctions because there was far more money to be made in the West. But Vodafone had a purpose, and this purpose was to build a digital society that enhances socioeconomic progress. And that's what inspired them to launch the idea of M-Pesa, even though it could have never been justified with a financial calculation. So the power of purpose is, if we start with innovation, driven by the desire to serve society, to solve problems of people and planet, could that lead us to innovate in ways that we would not do otherwise if we just thought about traditional market analysis where the profit opportunities were? Now, at this point in my talk, 8 minutes in, you might think, well, everything I say sounds great, but where is the evidence? Well, I seem to be saying if companies are driven by the idea to serve society, magically the pie will grow and investors will be better off. But that seems almost too good to be true. So this is why my day job as a professor is not to tell stories. Right? I've told one story of Vodafone which worked, but how do you know that I didn't just hand-pick this one story because it supports my viewpoint? Instead, as a professor, we look at large-scale evidence across hundreds of companies over many, many industries. And what I wanted to look at is, are companies driven by the desire to serve society? Are they going to be more profitable in the long term? So this is one of my own studies which I completed a while ago. Does purpose pay off? Well, how do I measure which companies were delivering value to wider society? Well, what I wanted to look at was the 100 best companies to work for in America. How do companies do in terms of treating their employees? Now, you might think, well, why is that my measure of purpose? That seems really uninspiring compared to some of the solutions we've seen, to plastics, to help the blind, to desalination. But it's quite difficult to compare, say, a desalination technology towards a biodegradable plastic versus a Braille device, whereas employees, this is something which is comparable across every single company. And also, you might think, well, why don't I look at climate? That's really important. But climate is important if you're in energy. It's not so important if you're, say, a social media company. So I'm looking at employees because this is material for every single company out there. And importantly, I don't have a measure of, did you avoid a scandal? Did you avoid a strike or labor unrest? Remember, my definition of purpose was not doing no harm. It was actively doing good. Can we go above and beyond, in this case, in how you treat your employees? So this measure I have is the list of the 100 best companies to work for in America. These are companies which are top of the tree in how they provided a great place to work. And to cut this long story short, I wanted to see, do these companies actually outperform, or are they just fluffy companies who are distracted from the bottom line? And what I found was that the 100 best companies to work for in America delivered shareholder returns that beat their peers by 2.3 to 3.8% per year over a 28-year period. That is 89 to 184% compounded. And so the companies that were treating their employees well, they weren't just splitting the pie, giving up some of the pie to the employees. They were growing the pie, employees were becoming more productive, more innovative, and more likely to stay. Now you might think, well, that sounds great, but how do we know, is it correlation or is it causation? I seem to be claiming that if you treat your workers well, your company will do better, but maybe it's the opposite. Maybe once the company is already doing well, then employees are happy because they're able to spend more on wages. Or maybe if you're in, say, the tech industry, in the tech industry, employees are happy because there's a lot of innovation and it's a fun place to work. And if you're in the tech industry, you are also performing well because this has been a successful sector. So what I had to do was to rule all of this out and to suggest that if you first start by how can we create a great place to work, that will ultimately lead to profits down the line. So in the last part of my talk, I'm going to talk about putting purpose into practice. So my first part is, what does it mean to be responsible, not to do no harm, to actively do good? The second part is, this does lead to performance in terms of bottom line profits. My third and final part, the most important, is, well, how do we actually become more purposeful as a company? Now, again, I'm going to start by having a little bit of a different view to what we typically hear. Often people define purpose as trying to serve everybody. You see companies with purpose statements like this one. Our purpose is to serve customers, workers, suppliers, the environment, and communities and investors. Now, that sounds great, but it's unrealistic because you can't serve everybody. Right, so if you are an energy company and you close down a polluting plant, that's good for the environment, but it's bad for workers. And if you think about the word purpose in the English language, it doesn't mean serving everybody. It means being focused and targeted. If I do something on purpose, I do it deliberately. If I have a purposeful meeting, it's one with a clear agenda. So how I define purpose is why a company exists, who it serves, its reason for being, and the role that it plays in the world. And that might seem quite lofty and idealistic, but to pick it apart, what I'm trying to emphasize here is we can't try to solve every single problem in the world, but to look at a couple of things, like why you exist. It can't be to solve all the world's problems, but to think about a couple. Like, we often look at the Sustainable Development Goals, there's 17 of them, but it's not a company's responsibility to solve all 17 goals, but maybe to focus on the 3 or 4 where you can really move the needle. So if there's only one thing that you take away from my talk, it is this. How do we decide which of these goals to address? To ask yourself the question, what is in my hand? By this I mean, what are the resources, what is the expertise that my company has, and how can I use this to serve society if I think a little bit more creatively? So for Vodafone, what was in their hand was a technology that at the time was able to transfer text messages, and instead they tried to use this to instead transfer mobile money. And notice that this is a quite different way of thinking about purpose to how most companies think about it, which is rather than using what's in a hand, we instead react to what's out there. So when George Floyd gets killed, a lot of companies give money to Black Lives Matter. I am clearly somebody who cares a lot about racial equality. But if you're a company like Vodafone, maybe your expertise is not knowing whether a racial equality charity is better than a cancer charity or better than an environmental charity. It is using your technology to have innovative applications such as M-Pesa. So let me end with just 3 ways of how companies can use what is in their hand. Well, the first is to do new things. And this is typically what people think about when they think about innovation, obviously. Right? Any company will try to innovate, even if you're a company without a purpose, but you will innovate only if you see a bottom line profit, something monetizable, at the end of doing so. However, there's many other companies driven by purpose where you will innovate to serve wider society, to solve a social problem, and that will push us towards doing more innovations than what we might do otherwise. That might be towards serving new products and services for existing clients, or trying to reach new clients to begin with who we might have never reached before. That is the idea of Vodafone moving away from their traditional heart to somewhere like Kenya. And then how do I apply this myself as a business school professor? Well, my existing clients are my MBA students at London Business School. My job is to teach them corporate finance. But really, will their lives change because I teach them to do the weighted average cost of capital? Probably that will not be life-changing. But one of the more important skills in the business world today is public speaking. So for me, I give a large public speaking element to my corporate finance class. And also, yes, it's a privilege for me to teach London Business School students, but many of the people who most require financial tools, well, they can't afford to do an MBA at London Business School because it costs $100,000. However, I have another position with Gresham College, which is an organization which gives free lectures to the public, just like Michael Faraday used to give on science, and that is a way of reaching new people. So this is for me, as just one person, how can I think about things beyond my day job of teaching finance to business school students? Obviously, the power of companies with far more resources, there's many analogies, I'm sure, within LG. But the second thing is to do the same thing, but in a different way. So, even if we just don't change what we actually do, just by pursuing this with a huge amount of excellence, that is something which is really purposeful. And in particular for a company like LG, where the heart of what you do is already creating so much value for wider society, even if we don't think explicitly about purpose, just by being excellent in innovation, in design, in customer service, that has a huge effect on wider society. So again, to my analogy as me as a professor, what is the best way that I add value to society? It is not by the fact that I bike to lectures rather than taking a taxi. It is by preparing my classes to make sure they're not just theoretical, but they're also practical, just excellence in the core business, professional pride in what you do at LG. Maybe it's not in innovation, maybe you work in payroll, maybe you work in procurement. Just doing this in an excellent way has a huge impact on society. And the final thing is to do the same thing in the same way, but to recognize the ultimate purpose of what you're doing. So I'm sure some of you will know this graphic. 3 people are doing the same thing. One of them is building bricks, laying bricks. The other says, I'm making a living. And the third says, I'm building a cathedral. So they're doing exactly the same thing, but they are looking at, one of them is looking at the ultimate purpose of what they're doing, whereas the first person only looks at the small immediate action. And so again, with an LG, maybe this is somebody who works on refrigerators. On the one hand, you might be designing a small problem. On the other hand, you might think, well, ultimately, by being able to do this, I am allowing people access to fresh food, and this is something which is going to transform their lives by giving them access to nutrition. And obviously here, we have a lot of very senior people. And as a senior person, what you are able to ultimately do is, if you're customer-facing, you are seeing the ultimate impact of a company's products. And sometimes junior people don't see this themselves, so one of the responsibilities that we might have, particularly the more senior ones who are customer-facing, is to report the impact of all of the great things LG does internally. One of the banks I work with in the UK is NatWest. And NatWest, after the pandemic was over, the CEO, Alison Rose, she took out her senior management team to a restaurant in Covent Garden called the Darjeeling Express. And she had the restaurant owner tell the story. 30 years ago, she came to the UK. Nobody wanted to lend her. Why? because she was an immigrant, she was somebody who had no experience, and she was a woman. And back then it was even harder as a woman to get a loan than now. And she said, NatWest, by giving me this loan, I was able to hire this many people, create this many jobs, serve this many customers. And so this story got told just internally many, many times. And so if you were the person working on the loan to Asma Khan of the Darjeeling Express, you might think, I'm just doing some financial analysis. But this is something that ultimately created a huge amount of value, but often as a junior person, we don't see the ultimate value that we create. And what about people who are sort of lower on in the organization? We're looking at here some amazing innovations like desalination, like biodegradable plastics, like Braille technology. But not everybody in an organization can do something that inspiring and that value creating. So what I'm going to end with is a much more humble, smaller idea of using what's in your hand. And this is an example from my first job at Morgan Stanley. I started off right at the bottom as a junior analyst. I thought I had nothing in my hand. Right? Nobody worked for me, I was right at the bottom. But in fact, I realized people did work for me. There was my secretary, there was my IT department, and there was perhaps the most abused department in an investment bank is graphics. You give them a unintelligible scribble, and they turn this into some PowerPoint slides. And often people would shout at graphics for not doing what you wanted, even though it was your fault because you were not explaining it clearly enough. So when I got good work back from graphics, I would call them up and say, hi, this is Alex, you worked on my job. I just wanted to say thank you. Right? You did all these things well. This other thing I never asked for, and you did it anyway. And honestly, I never did this to be seen as a nice person. I just was genuinely grateful. But because I was so junior, because I was right at the bottom, I didn't have my own office. I sat on the open plan floor. And so when people heard me, then they started to say thank you themselves. And so I'm not going to claim that we changed the entire culture of Morgan Stanley, but in just that floor of that office in London, people started to treat each other a little bit more kindly. So we often think of ourselves as a thermometer. We reflect the temperature around us. If the world is cutthroat, we need to be cutthroaters to survive. But can we think of ourselves as a thermostat affecting the temperature around us with our own actions, even if we're somebody really junior, which I was, what was in my hand? It was something as simple as my own words and my ability to say thank you. And thank you is how I'm going to end, because this has just been a great experience to be part of this great competition, to see companies growing the pie with all the innovations that they've made. Gamsahamnida. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Alex Edmans. As you mentioned, 감사합니다. Professor Alex Edmans really highlighted how to use what is in our hands to strive for excellence, be a thermostat instead of being a thermometer, and really give back and impact the wider society. Thank you very much, Professor. All right, so we will carry this momentum, this energetic momentum, and move on to the next presentation. This one is titled Better Business. And for that, I'd like to invite onto the stage Cambridge Judge Business School Professor, Mr. Christopher Marcus. Please welcome him with a big hand.
Okay, well, thank you very much. It's really wonderful to be here and learn about all the amazing innovations that the four groups put forward today. So I am a management professor, and so what I focus on is the strategies and organizational management practices companies have to take innovations deep into their companies. And so the four companies that we'll learn more about today, if they want to grow to be LG, what can they do? What are the strategies, practices, processes that they can enact to take those forward in an authentic way? Because these are all companies that have a social and environmental mission at their core, And as Alex mentioned earlier, a lot of companies are greenwashing these days. And so we don't want to have, sort of a vision that is sustainable, but then our practices are not. And so that's what I'm going to focus on. It's a focus of my recent book called Better Business. And I focus on these companies, B corporations, not because every company should be a B corporation. Actually, a very small number of companies will be these certified companies for their ESG performance. But the practices that have been developed are things that all companies can use. There was a recent Korean version published as well. So today, it's more important than ever for companies to really take responsibility for the broader social and environmental effects. We have floods everywhere, we have inequalities, and these are some of the things, climate change, inequalities, that some of the teams are dealing with today. And so I think that actually helping scale these innovations, it's really important. Okay. One of the reasons why business traditionally is not focused so much on environmental and social issues is that they're venereally focused on their shareholders. Certainly, financial shareholders, investors are crucial to businesses, but they actually sometimes get in the way of the purpose that Alex actually just talked about. And I think that he's right on target, that we don't necessarily want to focus on everyone, but actually companies knowing what the core issues that are essential to them are. I'm going to skip over that. Many organizations around the world, from the World Economic Forum, actually many of our sort of colleagues may be in Davos as we speak. Right before the pandemic, the focus was on sustainable and stakeholder capitalism. There's a group, the Business Roundtable in the US, that's saying the same things. Recently was the COP27 meeting where, COP being the conference of parties, bringing together business, NGOs, and government to solve the biggest problems in the world. The problem is that actually for all this talk, there's a lot of inaction. A lot of companies actually say they want to do good, but actually don't. So Marriott is a famous example. They're actually one of the companies that was part of the Business Roundtable saying we're going to change our purpose to be stakeholder driven. Pandemic hit. Of course, hospitality is going to have some issues and not necessarily be able to continue employing everyone. But what they did is, in addition to getting rid of all their employees, or a huge number of them, sort of laying them off, cutting their health benefits. They also increased their dividends and gave their CEO a raise, which really, I think, sort of says where their focus is. Coca-Cola also, and many of the packaged good companies say, we're recycling, but actually a very small percentage of them are recycling. And I think it's really easy to sort of, point at these companies and say, oh, you bad company, you say you're going to do well, but you actually don't. I think that actually a lot of the issue is that there's an implementation challenge. Actually, maybe companies do want to do well, but they don't know how to do it. And so the reason why is I think a lot of the norms, institutions, laws that exist really do push companies to focus on a very short-term oriented set of problems. And so all of these companies that we talked to today, the four from desalinization to plastic issues to overcoming issues with visual impediments, I really challenge them to really try to build an authentic company that actually is aligned with your purpose and the culture, employee practices also grow with that purpose because there's many norms and institutions that are pushing in the opposite direction. Yeah, so here's sort of this in the graph that a lot of times companies say they want to be more stakeholder driven, but actually are unable to do so, called out for greenwashing because of the problems with their practices. So the model that I developed in the book that I wrote recently to address these implementation challenges really has two dimensions. So one is, you hear about it a lot, ESG measurement, ESG measurement, transparency, and accountability. And I think that many companies say they're going to be doing all kinds of work in the ESG space. Maybe they do one or two things, but actually being publicly transparent and actually accountable to third parties is tremendously important. And the bottom one is around governance. Here too, if a company actually wants to be have a social mission, environmental mission, if actually the inside governance of the company is not aligned with that, it's actually never going to succeed in its goals. So there's a variety of governance mechanisms that I'll talk about in a second. So, you put those two together, and that's actually where these B corporations fit in. But actually, these two dimensions are things that hundreds of thousands, probably millions of companies nowadays are actually working on as far as ESG and stakeholder governance. Okay. So here are a few B corporations that I've listed. There's, many of them in Korea. People frequently say this is a US movement. Actually now, less than 30% are US-based. Europe and Latin America are the areas where this movement is most vibrant, I think because there's a much more stakeholder-focused set of capitalist practices in the the EU and Latin America. Okay, so I'm going to talk about this first dimension. So here's an example of Patagonia, which you're probably all familiar with. It's a company that's very, very well known for its long-standing commitment to the environment and trying to actually solve a variety of environmental problems. And this, ESG management system that I mentioned, covers actually 5 different dimensions. You can see as you would, environment, community, areas where Patagonia is really, really strong, is where sort of they do very well. One of the reasons why I want to show this is that actually you can see over time, Patagonia has actually improved. As I interviewed a lot of companies about implementing these ESG practices, what they said is that, it's important for us to be transparent to our stakeholders, but it actually gives us a deeper understanding of our company and helps us manage better and also provides a roadmap for improvement. So you can see that with the Patagonia, they start off around 107 and are up around 151 in this ESG management score. So they're getting better over time. It's an internal impetus for change. And this is what a lot of the companies that I talked to said. It's a way to understand your company, continuously improve. It's also a way to compare and learn. So companies can look at Patagonia, see what Patagonia's practices are because it's all very open, and actually model their practices after industry leaders. So a way to share and learn. This is very in line with what investors are saying. So you probably know Larry Fink. He's a founder and CEO of BlackRock, which I think is about $8 trillion under management right now. And over the last number of years, he has written a letter to the CEOs of the companies that he invests in, basically telling them in a variety of ways that they should be more transparent, measure ESG, be more attentive to climate, be more attentive to stakeholders. And I don't know Larry Fink, so I don't want to sort of make a comment on his motivations. My guess is that he is actually not that concerned about the social impact necessarily or environmental impact. But what he says is actually these companies have better management and actually lower risk. So these ESG management practices are a way to actually ensure the long-term risk management of the company. So similarly with the US SEC. An example of this is the fashion brand Chloe, who I've gotten to know the CEO, Riccardo Bellini, pretty well over the last number of years. I just was in Paris about a month ago and talked to him. And he said, we actually started, he was hired in 2018 to really transform the brand into being much more sustainable, which if you think about it, a fashion brand is not really consistent with sustainability, sort of cognitively. But he thought that actually through materials, through design, through workforce, supply chain, that Chloe could be a really pioneering company in delivering ESG sustainability benefits. And what he said is that actually starting on this path of just trying to measure and understand things like the environmental impact of materials. For instance, they moved to moved away from a number of cotton and other sort of very high environmentally damaging materials to things like linen which are much less environmentally damaging, as an example. So he saw this as again, sort of continuous improvement process over a number of years. Actually, the company got better and better over time and actually ended up becoming one of these B corporations, but that was not their goal. Actually, they started this process just to actually learn how to implement sustainability within their company. And so this particular tool the B Impact Assessment. Currently over about 250 companies, including a lot of impact investors. Many of the investment companies nowadays use tools like this to get a better handle on their portfolio companies. BDC and Bank of Columbia, BDC's Business Development Bank of Canada. Two examples of companies that actually use this tool to assess their lendees. Again, because it gets a good view into the company in a deep level that they wouldn't be able to get otherwise. There's a lot of other tools you might be familiar with: GRI, SASB, Sustainable Accounting Standards Board, TCFD, the Science-Based Targets. I think there's a variety of them, and I think it's really important to think about your organization, which actually tools work best for you, stick to them, and actually continue learning through your organization. Yeah, here's just a few slides on investors taking notice. So when I first started teaching on these issues of social responsibility, social innovation, social entrepreneurship a number of years ago, my students would say, this is great ideas for small companies. But public companies, large companies, maybe they're would not be as focused on that. And that actually has changed over these last few years. So now all the major VC companies, VC firms have sustainable brands in their portfolios. I don't think this is greenwashing necessarily. I think it's because these companies actually are performing well, positioned well. As of recently, there's 45 of the certified B corporations in public markets around the world. Here's some examples in the US. This is only in the last year or two. Again, 10 years ago when I started teaching on this, my students said this would never happen, and actually it's been happening quite a bit. Large companies too. There's many companies, 10, 20, $30 billion companies that are really committed to this also. So the second dimension, so I talked a little bit about why it is really important to be focused on measuring, being accountable, and transparent on your ESG. So the second axis of this model is around governance, stakeholder governance. And in particular, I'm going to highlight a legal innovation that has been spreading around the world recently called benefit corporations. So this is a type of company that actually does not have delivering profit to shareholders as the legally defined purpose of the company, but the company articulates a purpose. And I think very similar to what Alex was saying earlier, it's important to actually know what your purpose is, to know what you sort of have in your hand. And so companies have everything from sort of serving their employees, the environment, et cetera. So it's not necessarily serving broad sets of stakeholders, but actually knowing what your corporate purpose is, and then being accountable for it. So this law, this type of company, and there's tens of thousands, maybe even over 100,000 of these companies around the world, started in the US, spread around Europe, so Italy and France, and then a variety of places in South America. And recently, Rwanda, actually in Africa, implemented this legal innovation. No countries yet in Asia. Maybe you all can help with Korea being the first place. Yeah, so this is, basically what I just said, sort of, create a material positive impact on society. So you sort of set what your purpose is, it gets encoded in the legal principles of the company, and then the purpose that you articulate outside, work in your organization, actually are well aligned with the governance as well. And as I mentioned, being accountable and transparent too. In the UK, actually, up until about a year ago, there was a lot of traction, actually, of having this type of company being the default corporation. The last year in the UK has been a very tumultuous year, with the poor Queen passing away and a variety of other political and economic issues. Hopefully it'll get back on the agenda. But the idea being that a country actually may take this innovation and have it be sort of the default type of company, so that companies would actually have to think about, okay, what is our purpose? Maybe for some it would be actually delivering shareholder value. But maybe for others it would trigger a thinking around the broader sets of community, employees, and environment that are essential to them. It's important actually because this is about empowering directors. Maybe many times managers or directors have a social mission, have a focus, want to focus on the environment, but they don't feel empowered necessarily to actually take that action. So this innovation actually helps with that. I think, hopefully it's somewhat obvious by now, but this is something that is really essential to culture of organizations. You read occasionally about companies that, they have a lot of good talk and PR, but actually very destructive culture within. Sort of going through these various ESG assessments, it actually tells the company what the key practices in regards to employees are, and there's a variety of studies that have shown that sort of implementing social responsibility practices actually helps with attraction and retention of talent, which are very expensive to firms. So there's a financial benefit to it as well. Alex also showed the UN SDGs, and this is also a critical element of this system. So again, not all 17 SDGs do companies need to focus on. There are certain SDGs that are particularly relevant to those companies, and actually this system, the B Corp system, or other ESG systems like the GRI, for instance, also is similar to this, helps companies understand, okay, what are the key SDGs that are essential to my firm? And then, once those have been identified, how to actually help execute against improving those. So I think sort of this language of SDGs, which we can all in the world work on, is an important topic. Finally, mainly, I want to focus on consumers. I think, this is an element of the equation that I think has been underplayed. So to me, as a management professor, things like the business processes, long-term risk, HR function, also attracting investors is another one, are really where I see some of the key benefits of being a sustainable business. But also, companies frequently want, consumers to see what they're doing and have brand lift as well. And this is actually an SDG, number 12, responsible production and consumption. I think the evidence is still a little mixed as to whether consumers actually will buy based on sustainability. If you look at surveys, particularly surveys of millennials, they say that they will, but I'm not sure the evidence is there necessarily yet to actually show that they actually are. However, the more and more companies that are talking about this, the more and more benefits the companies are seeing inside the firm, it's very likely that this will actually pick up speed, and hopefully the consumers will increasingly care about it as well. So I guess in closing, what I want to say is that I see, as the 4 finalists and other social entrepreneurs and enterprises, want to build their business for the long term. Maybe tomorrow, be the next tomorrow's LG, basically, gigantic, hugely successful company. I think that these ideas of ESG, management and accountability and stakeholder governance are tremendously important because, consumers, people, employees are demanding more of companies nowadays. With the climate change, inequalities, this is hugely on the agenda. And also, ESG assessment and measurement helps build better business. That's actually why I titled the book Better Business. It's because countless of the companies I talked to said, I got into this idea because I wanted to be socially and environmentally responsible. But actually, going through this ESG process, I came out a better business, meaning better performing financially as well as better performing socially and environmentally. Also, having the governance aligned is important as well, because investors are increasingly caring about this, and employees, also consumers and reputation. So with that, I'm going to stop. Thank you very much. 감사합니다.
Thank you very much, Professor Christopher Marcus. Thank you very much for sharing your insights on how to future-proof and future-optimize our participants' business ventures going forth. Thank you very much. Lastly, from Hanyang University, we have Professor Hyun-Sang Shin, who will talk about collective impact. Please welcome Professor Hyun-Sang Shin with a big hand.
Hello, my name is Hyun Shin, and I'm a professor at Hanyang University, and also serve as Ashoka U Change Leader and Editor-in-Chief of Stanford Social Innovation Review Korean edition. I'm also founder and CEO of Impact Research Lab, which provides impact consulting service to foundations, NGOs, social ventures, and for-profit companies. In the past, the sole purpose of business is to maximize profit. Only financial performance, such as stock price, was important as it can make the shareholders happy. In 2019 Business Roundtable, however, famous CEOs from world-class companies like Amazon, Apple, and GM announced that shareholder value is not everything. They said that companies should care about the welfare of stakeholders. Maybe you tried at least once chocolates like Snickers and M&Ms. Mars is the company which produces and sells those brands, making lots of money, say over $30 billion US per year. In collaboration with Oxford Side Business School, they developed an interesting concept called EOM, or Economics of Mutuality. The key idea is very close to the growing the pie or pie economics proposed by Professor Alex Edmonds. If a company can strengthen the ecosystem which it belongs to, then strengthened ecosystem will make the company more sustainable. Maybe you heard about ESG, environmental, social, and governance. This means that now even investors care about non-financial information when they make investing decisions. There are so many reasons why modern companies should pay attention to social and environmental values. One step further, people now think about business as a force for good. As Professor Chris Marcus explained, B Lab certifies companies which try to be better for the society. As such, people think that companies can do a lot for the society. Surely, companies have lots of money these days. But beyond that, they have strong capabilities and expertise, which can be used to make the world a better place for the humanity. This is an important message for business people. As we all know, there are so many social problems ranging from poverty, jobless, disease, pollution, educational gap, and so on. UN proposed SDGs, or Sustainable Development Goals, calling for innovative and impactful solution, entrepreneurship, and collaboration. Let's talk about the innovative solution first. According to Stanford Social Innovation Review, we can define a social innovation as a novel solution to a social and/or environmental problem that is more effective, efficient, sustainable, or just than existing solutions. After my talk, you will enjoy great examples of social innovations or innovative solutions offered through 4 wonderful teams' presentations. Such solutions aim to make impact or meaningful changes for environment and the society. Impact can be defined, measured, and managed following the consensus of IMP, Impact Management Project, initiated by world-famous organizations such as World Bank, OECD, UNDP, and UNGC. Second, we need people with strong entrepreneurship for the innovative and impactful solutions to work in the real world. Bill Drayton, founder of Ashoka, calls such entrepreneurship social entrepreneurship. According to him, it is not sufficient to give marginalized people fish or teach them how to fish. That is not enough. We need people who revolutionize the entire fishing industry, making system-level changes. In 2016, people gathered at Stanford University to discuss how to utilize entrepreneurship to address global social problems. As you can see from this picture, Mr. Obama, a political leader, and Mr. Zuckerberg, a business leader, and few young leaders from social sector talked about collaboration to make impactful changes.
Surely, collaboration is usually good. However, it does not always lead to a satisfactory outcome. We should be very smart to leverage the power of collaboration. In 2011, Kramer and Kania proposed an idea of collective impact in Stanford Social Innovation Review, identifying 5 components for smart collaboration. This article has been downloaded over 1 million times, showing people's interest and desire for smart collaboration. One interesting example of collective impact is Tree Planet, a social venture which finds solutions to plant more trees to address environmental problems and climate change issues. The initial idea behind Tree Planet was to develop a game in which you plant and raise a virtual tree. When it is fully grown, you can choose an actual deforested location, perhaps a part of Amazon River or the desert of Mongolia, where a real tree will be planted. Then a local NGO plants a real tree on the site of your choice, takes a picture of sapling, and sends it to you via social media. You can leave a message for your tree, and your family and friends can like it and share it, which will make you proud and happy. The funding comes from for-profit companies such as Hyundai Motors and Hanwha Energy, who can put their logos on in-game items such as fertilizer bags or watering cans. The land comes from local governments because they like the idea of getting lots of trees planted at no cost to them. In 5 years, Tree Planet helped to plant more than 500,000 trees around the world. They collaborate with famous sponsors such as Shinhan Bank, Toyota, and ING, and worked with local and global partners such as UN, UNICEF, and World Vision. One key to the company's success was its win-win model, in which no participant or stakeholder had to sacrifice. As you can see from the picture on the right side, every participant can take something away. Company can get good brand image and reputation. NGOs can get funds for their own business. Local government can get lots of trees, and the users can have fun and rewarding experience. Now, they are diversifying their method to increase participation and get even more trees planted. They don't stop and keep innovating their solutions. They also try to find new solutions to plant more trees and make bigger impacts. For the past 10 years, they planted around 1 million trees. Maybe not that impressive number to some of you. However, don't forget that around 10 young people with very little money could achieve such outcomes. That is something, I think. And if they can do that, then you can do it too. Why not? And this is why LG Electronics came up with the idea of Life is Good Award, I think. As I mentioned earlier, to achieve SDGs or Sustainable Development Goals, we need innovative and impactful solution, entrepreneurship, and collaboration. And Life's Good Award can be a platform where entrepreneurs with innovative and impactful solutions can be identified and supported, and where they can be connected with other brave entrepreneurs as well as ambitious organizations which have resources, knowledge, and commitment to solve a certain social problem, making profound impact on the lives of people and the health of the planet. Last year, Kania and his colleagues published at Stanford Social Innovation Review an article on Collective Impact 2.0. According to them, collective impact can be defined as a network of community members, organizations, and institutions that advance equity by learning together, aligning, and integrating their actions to achieve population and system-level change. I hope Life is Good Award can be a powerful medium to promote and facilitate collective impact by forming a community of innovative and impactful entrepreneurs and helping them work together for environment and the society. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. That was Professor Hyun-Sang Shin of Hanyang University, and we do hope that Life's Good Award will serve as a good starting point for spreading good influence, as the professor mentioned. All right, it is time to meet our 4 finalists of Life's Good Award. Now, as was mentioned by the head of Global Marketing Center of LG Electronics, Mr. Chong-seok Lee, during the welcoming address, we were absolutely inundated with applications around the world across the entire spectrum of businesses. So from established companies, NGOs, startups, the entire spectrum. And that is why we say with confidence that the 4 finalists coming thus far already means that you are all winners. So the 4 finalists of Life's Good Award are as follows: Salutem, Dot Inc., Day One Lab, and Nona Technologies. So without further ado, let us hear from the 4 teams and learn about their promising solutions with undoubtedly powerful potential. All right, here is the first team from Salutem. Please welcome Ms. Sharon Barrack.
Good afternoon, everyone. So excited to be here today. My name is Sharon Barak. I'm the founder and CTO of Salutem. I actually want to start by showing you the planet as we all know it today. This is the map with the continent, the oceans. This is actually taken from NASA's website. For the past 60 years, mankind has successfully changed our planet. And currently today, we have 5 plastic islands floating in our ocean. Islands made entirely out of plastic, thrown away to our environment. The size of each island is about twice the size of Texas. So, Houston, we have a big problem. Where does all this plastic come from? Each year, we produce around 400 million tons of plastic. Let's dive into the slide and understand the problem. So we saw the plastic islands. Because of the plastic islands, we have found microplastic within fish. Recently, we have found microplastic within human blood. There is regulation today, but it doesn't accelerate the problem fast enough. Because currently today, we spend around $3.7 trillion on the plastic problems. Just imagine, we're talking about making life good. What can we make with $3.7 trillion shifting from the plastic problems to other solutions, to other benefits? The problem today is there is no good enough solution to plastic, cost-effective enough, and scalable enough. Plastic is here around 60, 70 years. You can see how it accelerates during the past years since we just invented it. It started back then in 1950, and here the gray area is approximately 2023. You can see 400 million tons. If we continue producing plastic at this rate, 2050, this is where we're going to be, floated with plastic. One of the plastic single-use products that we are all well known, or some of us know very well, are diapers. Diapers made out of plastic. Here you can see how many diapers one baby needs for 1 year. And we all know how many diapers we have today. One possible way to get rid of these diapers is to use reusable diapers on the other side of the picture. This can replace those diapers. Now you probably ask yourself, but today, who will use those reusable diapers? It's so comfortable to use those single diapers, although it does make a lot of damage to the environment. So, this is my baby Ari. He is saving the environment from the first day he was born. We are only using reusable diapers. In fact, we are only using reusable everything. At home, we don't use any single plastic. This is how I started. This is how I started caring about the environment. It came to me in recent years. I wasn't like this in the beginning. But a few years ago, I kind of realized where we are heading. And I said, OK, I'm not going to use this. This is something I really take inside, and really, my family support it, and this is what we do. But it's not enough. Change needs to be much, much bigger. I'm a chemical engineer. I actually used to be the R&D manager at a plastic company. It was over there I realized the phenomena, the magnitude of what we are facing. Yes, plastic is a great product. I do believe so. But the way we're using it today won't take us anywhere. And what are we leaving for our kids? And I love this sentence. Be the change you wish to see in the world. This is what I decided to do. 5 years ago, I quit my job. I had a great job, really. But I decided to quit it. And I started Solituum. Our vision? To eliminate plastic waste for good. How are we going to do that? We have invented this material that on one hand feels and looks like plastic. But once it comes in contact with water, it will dissolve and biodegrade. And I'm going to do some magic here today, so bear with me. This is a film. I hope you can see it. And when I put it in water, don't know if in the back you can see it very well, but pay attention. So you can see it starts to disappear. So this will eliminate the plastic islands that we have today. So this is how we started. I think it's pretty cool. I love it. But you are very limited with what you can do with plastic that dissolves in water. So what we did, we took it to the next step. And we developed a unique mechanism that allows us to control how sensitive our material are to water. So we have products today already scaled, already in the market, that are much more durable to water. Because a friend of mine asked me, Sharon, great, but what will you do if it's a rainy day and I want to go take your bag outside? So this is exactly what we did. And with a special IP and special development that we did, you can apply it, we can apply it, and actually replace all kinds of single-use plastic product to start with. This is the first product that we have developed. We developed it with Colgate, our design partner. This is a poly bag for their merchandisers. And I really like this one. First of all, I really enjoyed working with Colgate. But more than that, at the bottom of the bag, you can see that there is a QR code, QR barcode. You can scan it. And with your family at home, you can go to the web page and see how, in a safely and responsibly and a sustainable way, you can get rid of it. The next product that we are working with Colgate is to replace their toothbrush packaging. Colgate is selling approximately 3 billion toothbrushes a year. So replacing the packaging has a huge impact. Now we have the ability to control all kinds of different properties of the product. So you saw the plastic bag. Now this is a whole new product. This is something different. This is a stretch film being used to wrap pellets and to shift it wherever you want. Almost all companies today are using this kind of stretch film. And here, this one we have developed with AB InBev, specifically with their Corona beer brand. And you can see, oh, the video didn't. But believe me, it's already working on the production lines. Why did we decide to start with those two products? I mean, we have a replacement for plastic. We can go and do whatever kind of plastic we want. But we specifically target the thin film flexible packaging. And this is why. Rigid plastic, all kinds of different plastic, even bottles are being recycled today at some kind of percentage. Thin film packaging, almost not at all. Some in Europe, a little bit in Canada. But when we're looking at the entire planet, almost 0% of those packaging is being recycled. That means it stays in our environment. And those flexible packaging are in charge of more than 80% of the plastic leakage to the ocean. So obviously, the problem is huge, and we need to find a solution now. One of the things that was very important for us when we are looking at to replace plastic is there are so many facilities all over the world to manufacture plastic, to manufacture plastic products, we thought we want to integrate to the same existing plastic machinery lines. And this is what we are doing. We are using available raw material from the market. We are manufacturing our products on existing plastic products machine, which means instead of using plastic raw material, you use Solothurn raw material, and in the end, you get a product which is environmentally friendly, and from there, obviously, to the rest of the world. We are looking at a holistic approach to the end of life. Yes, our claim to fame is water biodegradable. We have reached those standards. We can claim that we are water biodegradable, both in a managed environment and an unmanaged environment. So if the product ends up in the environment, we got it. We take over it. Also, by the way, in soil. But then as we matured and we started discussing it with our clients, with all different kinds of places in the world, we understood that we need to find other solutions as well to other end-of-life scenario. So we worked on it, and currently today at the managed environment, our materials can be composted, home composting, industrial composting. At the existing plastic recycling stream, they won't interfere it, because when you're recycling plastic, you wash it with a lot of water, and our products will dissolve. It has a very high calorimetric value, so it can go to incineration to generate energy. And looking to the future, being collected properly, it can actually be used to a second product, let's say as binder for the paint industry, and by that we are creating a circular economy. Oh, we saw this today, right? Super important, and I loved all the lectures before. We in our company has our value almost from day one. Sustainability, obviously, is one of them, diversity and some more. When we are looking at the Sustainable Development Goals, we have 17. We, at Solothurn, contribute to 6 out of those 17, some directly by replacing plastic, some by other ways, but this is our way to have a huge impact on the environment. We believe in leave no trace. This is why we made this disappearing product. We don't want to leave anything behind us. We want to have a clean environment to the next generation. And this is why I'm going to take this opportunity, and I have 3 asks to ask from you, respectful audience. First, pay attention. When you're buying all kinds of different products, when you're using single-use product, pay attention. Have a look if those packaging are environmentally friendly. Think maybe you can take a reusable cup instead of single-use cup. The enormous impact that will have can make a difference. Yes, every single one of us can make a difference. So it's starting by paying attention. Second, please use your influence to spread the word. First with your family, then with your community, then maybe with Instagram or TikTok. I heard this is what's going on today. Post, I heard that there is a dissolvable plastic. Let's take care about the environment. This is cool. This is very cool to take care about the environment. And third, well, this is an opportunity to speak with such an important people from all kinds of places here in LG, and I'm sure many more. Use your force, your power to spread, your power to make a difference. If you can help implement all kinds of solutions in the company, if you have connections to the government, any way we can speed up the process, that will be super helpful. This is our vision, to have a clean ocean once again. I welcome you to help us and join us in our journey. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sharon Barak. I think I speak for everyone when I say that I was very energized by your passionate presentation and your continuous efforts to restore our planet and have a clean ocean once again. So thank you very much. All right, we will now move on to the second presentation. The second team is Dot Inc. Please welcome the presenter, Mr. Eric Joo-Yoon Kim.
Hello everyone, I'm Eric, co-founder and CEO of Dot Inc. In ESG movement, Dot is founded from a social sector. and social problems. In our world, there are a lot of PWD population that is bigger than Europe or China and India market. More than 15% of world population has a disability. And if you think about their family and their friends, it's about 75% of our entire population. But the problem is, like you can see here, limited utilization of PWD population causes a lot of waste. For example, in the US, they are losing more than $600 billion revenue annually. Can you guess what it is? This is Braille Bible book. When my co-founder, Key, and I went to church, saw this, we got so shocked. We really like Silicon Valley innovation, but this makes no sense for us. One tiny Bible book becomes 22 Braille Bible books. And if you can see here, this one line, you can only read text in digital way, was the only solution about making contents available for blind people. And it costs more than $5,000. We realized that this problem is older than more than 30 years. And one of the most shocking facts for us was that more than 80% of blind population becomes blind their later ages, like 20, 40, by accident or diseases. Because of that, not many people can read Braille because it's so hard to learn. They need alternative technology that makes go back to work and get more education. In our world, there are so many information are visual. Without visual information, you cannot live well. How can you understand these complex pictures by just hearing sound as a blind person? In EU, they tried to make a solution for this for about 30 years, and this is one of the failed projects. It's called Anagraphs. And EU government announced that more than 30 million blind people need this technology to access digital information. So we found DOT, and we focused on technology first. Our technology is called DOT Pixel, created more than 10 times smaller and flexible size of display. Existing technology were really big, like a finger big, and we made it so small that can create a screen like what we see. It looks like this. And with this, we created the haptic visualization technology for every blind people. I'm going to show you one video about DotPad.
My name is Won Yun-sun. I'm a teacher for the visually impaired like myself. The biggest challenge for us is dealing with graphical learning material like curves, charts, models, or any other visual asset.
While we're used to understanding complex topics through visualization, it's much harder for the 285 million blind and visually impaired people worldwide. Tactile books are expensive and rare. Audio descriptions don't work for complex topics. After 7 years of reinventing tactile devices for text, we're now entering a new dimension.
DotPad, the first smart tactile graphics display.
It can display any visual content from any source because the innovative dot image processing technology uses AI to analyze and segment images and display them most accurately. DotPad's universal control elements allow you to interact with the content directly on device. Thanks to our partnership with Apple, DotPad gives you access to over 2.2 million apps out of the box.
Being able to use all of these apps creates a whole new perspective for me.
Instead of carrying heavy tactile books with the DotPad, we can now access anything on the internet.
You can take a picture and see instantly what's in front of you.
Wow! I've never felt my signature before. This is amazing.
DotPad unlocks whole new forms of content for the blind. Games, comics, movies, and much more than we can possibly imagine. To increase our impact, we're already making the DotPad technology accessible in other shapes and through other manufacturers, partnering with organizations, corporations, and governments worldwide.
They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, now I get it.
Well, DotPad is in my hand right now. I put LG logo. More than 2,400 dots create a tactile screen for visually impaired people to see again. What we do is like what computer did to us. When you think about like Macintosh, when first computer came out, we used DOS system that only used text. But now we are using graphical user interface that we can interact through our eyes. But what we did to blind people is exactly that. And we are enabling education, enabling jobs, enabling entertainment. This means a lot, and this is life-changing technology. We recently got the Best of Innovation Award in CES in accessibility. Let's take a look how we enabling education. Through DotPad, we can bring a STEM education possible to blind population. Let's take a look. On the left side, a blind student is learning mathematics through tactile books. And this is really old way. For 40 years, it happens like this. But with DotPad, we make it digital. And we can create so many instant information. It is helpful for students and teachers. We recently made a $30 million contract with US government and brings DotPad technology everywhere in US school. So it's happening right now. This is a picture that we got from the APH, one of our partners. So those books are translated to the pad. Let's take a look how the students think about it.
I think it was amazing. I've never seen anything like that before. When you're blind, you see images, you don't see them, but you hear about them, you hear people describe them. Maybe even someone draws something on a tactile pad to the best of their ability, but the tactile pad kind of brings it to a whole other level, and it brings the world of the blind to the world of sight, combines the two.
We had a conference in LA. It was a 4-day conference, and she came every day. First day, she came alone. Second day, she came with her parents. Third day, with friends. And fourth day, with teachers. And eventually, she changed her future jobs. This is the reason that Dot is doing this work to changing their lives. How about rehabilitation? Like I mentioned, more than 80% got suddenly blindness through car accidents, through diabetes. So the rehabilitation part is extremely important for Dot. Through navigation, receiving pictures, reading books, it was not possible, but we are researching and bring our technology to the US military veterans. In the US, more than 130,000 blinded veterans are there, and they need a rehabilitation. So we are collaborating with Department of Veterans. And this is the picture that Iraq war hero Tim Hornick checking his daughter's drawing on the DotPad for the first time since he lost his sight.
This exact photo will be portrayed on the DotPad and information.
And I could definitely tell now that my daughter drew a rainbow because just the image quality between the two has changed dramatically by being able to have the extra information just filtered out. So I mean, this is going to be a really cool feature when all this stuff is available, and I am looking forward.
How about enabling works? There are so many adults who want to go back to work. But for that, we need to think about our daily lives. We are using PowerPoint, Excel, spreadsheet. And think about this environment. They need a screen. So we are doing instant changes of contents on DotPad. And this is a video that we are working with Microsoft.
First, we'll show you the pre-chart demonstration. Display the chart to the DotPad. And lastly,
right now, Excel data is instantly transferred in DotPad. This is happening right now.
And once the
And also, we are working with Apple. Since iOS 15.2 version, DotPad instantly connect with iPad and iPhone and get all the visual data on the screen. And also, we are working with UAE government. How about the life of the Middle East blind people? So we are planning a bigger plan with the UAE government right now. If you think about like communication and creativity, you might know Andrea Bocelli, one of the famous tenor, a blind tenor in the history, he invited us to his house in Tuscany, and we showed the dot pad, and he loved it. So he saw for the first time his last daughter drew for him. And he did 1 million times of the signature, and he saw for the first time. So we are working with Andrea Bocelli right now, and Stevie Wonder. How about entertainment? A lot of people want to see sports game, and I'm looking forward to work with LG, how we can make accessible TV for blind population. So we are expected to be commercialized in 10 countries in 2023 this year and achieve sales contract of $40 million. And since 3 years ago, we wanted to see bigger pictures, how we can enable not just blind population, how about entire PWD, people with disabilities. And we saw many problems in our smart city plan. We found out that there are no digital information and digital innovation happening in our smart cities. There are plans for accessibility, but there are no smart solutions. In the US, there are increasing AD lawsuits because of these reasons.
We wanted to bring barrier-free technologies to public services.
Fitted with a tactile visualization display, Dot Kiosk has been successfully adopted by the Busan City Metro system, as well as multiple locations in Seoul, including Yeouido Iram Center, Gangnam Sport Culture Center, Gangnam Public Health Center, and the National Palace Museum of Korea.
It started from really small movement. We offered to the Pyeongchang Olympic Committee, how about making barrier-free kiosks for Pyeongchang Olympics? But it was so early days, and we learned a lot. Not just for blind people, we are adding a lot of accessibility function for hearing impaired, language impaired, and someone who rides wheelchairs. So we created the fundamental solution for cities and buildings. That one solution is called Dot Kiosk. And right now we are implementing in many places. One of the major places is the Busan Metro system.
Walk straight for 98 meters. He arrives at one of 2 accessible information kiosks that are connected to Bluetooth beacons placed all around the station. The system speaks out loud and has a Braille touchpad that turns into a tactile map of the facility.
When I select a destination, the Braille display lets me feel the layout of the station, and I can memorize where I need to go.
City officials say they plan to expand the app's coverage and install kiosks in all of the Metro's 114 stations. The Busan Transportation Corporation's Jun Byung-jun says these accessibility features will benefit all commuters.
It's not just for people with disabilities. It can be convenient for pregnant women and the elderly. It has multiple languages, so even foreign visitors can use it. It's for everyone.
Smart.
I think the last word is really important. It's for everyone. Not just for people with disabilities, not just for elderly population, it's for everyone. We are bringing our solution more than 100 stations in Busan right now, and we are expanding to the US and the EU rapidly. One of the examples is Vienna International Airport.
Mit unterschiedlichen Hürden konfrontiert, so auch der Wiener Michele, der seit 7 Jahren blind ist.
And if you think about like museum, for example, in the US there are 30,000 museums, and we need to make the museums also accessible. So we are having a POC project. We had POC project with National Palace Museum in South Korea, and bringing our accessibility solution for them. How about government buildings? Since we started last year, we planned more than 100 places, and this was unexpected growth, so fast growth for us. So we realized the market and the world need this kind of social solution. Global kiosk market is more than $28 billion, and a lot of studies saying about 15% will be replaced by accessible technology. Lastly, how about the future of accessibility that Dot dreams of? We want to make a lot of electronics, the best electronics that LG is making, accessible in a new way, completely new way. So one of the examples that we bring today is the remote controller. TV is almost inaccessible for every blind population. There's so many people in the US want to see, want to check. So we see this kind of population possibilities in the US and EU and rest of the world. And how about like kiosk? In every smart cities, we can collaborate and make accessible. And many blind people's dream is riding a car, having full control of their mobility. And right now, with one of the major company, we are collaborating with making self-driving car accessible, even for blind population. And how metaverse, we can use our haptic technology to make metaverse accessible. With more than 120 patents, we are bringing this innovation to the world. We dream accessibility as a service unicorn startup and enabling every PWD population and become a leading company. This is a $50 billion market. It's not a small market. It can be a story about us. It can be a story about our family. Lastly, when we went to CES, we met US government people, and they sent this video for this Life's Good Awards.
Hi, my name is Greg Stilson, and I run the Global Technology Innovation Team at the American Printing House for the Blind. I'm also a blind user of technology and a Braille reader myself. Over the last 40 years, we have seen a very stagnant technology world in the realm of tactile and Braille tech. Today, DOT has created a brand new cell technology that is going to unlock new form factors, designs, and innovations in this world of Braille technology. We're going to see people using, working, and learning with this technology in entirely new ways.
DOT is dreaming IPO to make a bigger impact to the world. Let's make now accessible together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eric Ji-Yoon Kim, for your presentation. It was very inspiring to see not just how innovative Dot Inc.'s technology is, but to also actually hear from the end users and learn about how their lives have changed thanks to Dot Inc.'s vision of enabling the PWD among us. And I think it also goes back to Professor Edmund's lecture about having clients report the impact on their lives back to you. So thank you very much. All right, we will now move on to the third team. The third team is Day One Lab. Please welcome your presenter, Mr. Ju-Bong Lee.
Good afternoon. My name is Ju-Bong Lee from Day One Lab, connecting human and nature through technology. Plastic, a man-made innovation that brought extensive convenience, is now a crisis to the world. There's no doubt plastic pollution is causing environmental problems and further threatening our health and that of the future generations. Day One Lab presents the ultimate solution to this crisis: an eco-friendly plastic alternative. Past 3 years, we experienced COVID pandemic that changed our life. But did you know that we are living in the era of plastic pandemic? Plastic accounts for 70% of the ocean pollution. Please take a look at this. The red and orange color indicate the distribution of microplastics in the ocean. When plastics are disposed, they degrade to particles less than 5 millimeters, which is well known as microplastics. Then why is this plastic pollution a problem? Because it threatens marine life and is risking food safety and human health. Microplastics have been found in tap water, beer, salt, and are present in every samples collected in the oceans. A recent research revealed that the level of PET microplastic found in infant feces was 10 times higher than that of the adults. And similar level of PC microplastic was found in both infant and adults. We tested how microplastic penetrate human blood vessel and skin, spreading to entire body. As you can see here, the green-colored particles are microplastics. The toxic microplastics are known to disturb human endocrine system. Unfortunately, the use of plastic exponentially grew, so did the level of microplastics. The problem of plastic does not only lie in the use and disposal. As the production level exponentially grew, the level of CO2 emission is striking. Scientists forecast a carbon budget, the ceiling amount which can permanently change the temperature of the Earth by 1.5 degrees higher. According to this forecast, by 2050, 15% of CO2 will be caused by plastic. If the trend continues, it will completely change the human history, affecting generations after generations. Then how can you put a stop to this? It is critical to change the fundamental material of the plastic to solve the global warming. Because, contrary to the common belief, the majority of CO2 emission is caused during resin production and processing of the plastic, which takes up 91%. To solve this problem, biodegradable plastic was invented. Biodegradable plastic is known to degrade within about 6 months, solving the environmental and social problems. However, the truth is, biodegradable plastic on Earth does not degrade even after decades. Why? Because biodegradable plastic requires a very specific composting condition known as ISO 14855-1. It requires temperature of 58 degrees Celsius, high humid environment with living microorganisms. Of course, our regular soil and ocean does not fulfill these conditions. And globally, not many landfills have such environment, requiring additional composting infrastructure, which is difficult to construct and maintain. We solve this problem. Our solution, InOcean, is produced from the nature and can truly go back to the nature, keeping our ocean amazing as they are. First, there was a petroleum-based plastics. Then biodegradable plastic was introduced to solve environmental and social problems. But in reality, both are same. They are all synthetic polymers. Synthetic polymers, as the word explains, are man-made. They do not exist in the nature. So their safety a long time and have yet to be fully proven. This is why CO2 and H2O degradation are simply considered to be safe. However, we thought differently. We decided to think out of the box. What if we used a natural polymer? What if we used a natural polymer like polysaccharide and protein, which are innocent to human and environment, to act like plastics? We successfully create a new plastic alternative using safe natural polymer that are even edible. InOcean will be the game changer, introducing the new paradigm of plastic degradation from biodegradation to what they call a natural degradation. Here's a video for you. When InOcean is disposed in the ocean, in about 2 weeks, the polymer completely degrades, and no microplastics are generated. During the same period, as you can see in the middle, biodegradable film show no sign of degradation, just like petroleum-based film on the right. The same goes for the regular soil environment. Over the 2 months of degradation test, InOcean degrades completely, even faster than the orange pill, while a biodegradable polymer remains the same. As certified by KATR, InOcean does not produce microplastics and other toxic components during the degradation. Our product can solve the ultimate plastic problem. It can reduce the marine pollution and does not require composting landfill. It can reduce the level of CO2 emission by 86%. And most importantly, it does not produce microplastics and it's safe for people. Our technology will change the world of plastic. Everyday consumption, like water and shampoo bottles and food packaging, will change. Electronic device and general appliance will change. Plastic use in agriculture and fisheries will change. And we will be able to maintain sustainable environment without compromising our convenience. Our strong team supports this vision. The two of the founding members are doctorate in natural polymer, and the other two are specialized in material science and are patent attorneys. We are an engineer-oriented company, and the majority of R&D personnel hold master or doctorate degrees. And based on this capability, we can continuously innovate our product. Also, we have an extensive business and research partnership for both technology and market penetration. And depending on the maturity level of the business, we internalize this capability with new hire. With the expertise of our team and innovation, we want to disrupt the global market, leading the material technology. We believe that the history of plastic, which began in 1907, will come to an end. And A1 Lab will lead from then on, writing a new chapter of history of innovation. Through the power of science, A1 Lab envisioned the very first day when human convenience does not exploit the nature. We strive to provide sustainable convenience to the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, we do definitely look forward to a future led by Day1 Lab, where, as you mentioned, convenience and cost effectiveness no longer automatically mean detriment to our precious environment. Thank you very much. All right, let's move on to the final team presentation, Nona Technologies. The presenter is Mr. Bruce Crawford. Please welcome him with a warm round of applause.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, everyone. We are honored to be here. We are nearing the end of the meeting. I want to give everyone permission to stretch. Stand up if you want to. I'll take a minute to do the same. Get comfortable. We're almost done. My name is Bruce Crawford. I'm joining you from MIT with my partner, Dr. Jung Hyo Yoon. We are launching a startup from MIT with a new water technology solution that has the potential to address the global water shortage. This is a picture from 2017 after Hurricane Maria struck the island of Puerto Rico. This disaster, like many hurricanes, flattened structures. It crippled infrastructure. The power was out, and many were left without clean water. About 3,000 people perished as a result of this disaster, many because of the polluted water that they were drinking. The situation was so dire that a third of the population, over 1 million people, were left without clean water for months after the disaster. Some resorted to knowingly drinking from wells that were known to be polluted with sewage, with dead animals, other gross stuff. The normal response after a disaster like this, and unfortunately there is a normal response because these disasters are becoming more common, is to send bottled water. The United States responded by sending thousands and thousands of pallets of plastic water bottles after this disaster, many of which were placed on this airstrip. Now, let me take a moment. Many of you have plastic water bottles like this one. What many people don't know about plastic water bottles like these is they have a shelf life of about 1 year. And that shelf life gets a lot shorter if they're exposed to heat or UV light. And you see where this is going. Unfortunately, there's a lot of heat and UV light on a Puerto Rican airstrip. When people received water from this source, they reported that it tasted bad and it smelled bad. In many cases, they returned it. Afterwards, more than 16 million water bottles were found dumped in fields around Puerto Rico. A few pictures. This was a bad response to a climate disaster that made things worse and did not help anyone. Now, an interesting thing about the global water shortage is it can impact people in so many different ways. Some people may be thrust into water scarcity by a disaster like this. Some people may live with it every day. Some of us, like I suspect most of us in this room, we don't feel water shortage today, but nevertheless, it's a growing problem. It's descending upon us. But we have the power to act. And if we act now using technology and innovation, we have a chance to make a better future. Today, this is the current state. About 1 in 3 people lack reliable access to clean water. And unfortunately, that number is growing. Experts predict that by the end of the decade, there will be a 40% gap on Earth between water supply and water demand. This may be the first major way that many of us experience climate change. Indeed, it's hard to think of a bigger problem for our species right now than water shortage. Myself, am from the United States. We're feeling water shortage there. I have lived in California and seen droughts that afflict Southern California. I've also lived in Florida, where I remember my family piling into a minivan and fleeing a Category 4 hurricane when I was a child. I think that I have a unique perspective on water shortage and the problem that it is and will become. Fortunately, my partner, Dr. Jung-Hyo Yoon, is a leading expert in what I think could be the solution. Dr. Yoon is an MIT research scientist in the Research Laboratory for Electronics. He's also a PhD from Korea University. Dr. Yoon's been spending the last several years developing a new technology which we think can make a difference for people suffering water shortage. We also happen to be friends and neighbors. Here's a picture of us getting barbecued together. We met watching our daughters play. We have daughters about the same age, and we live in the same building. So they played together. One day we were talking, and Dr. Yoon shared what he was working on. And I was very interested because I've seen some water shortage issues. I know what a big problem it is. I also have seen the power of technology to make a difference in these climate-related matters. I was part of the product development team at an electric car company in America that made the world's first electric pickup truck. So I believe that we can do something similar with this water shortage issue. Engineering and technology can make a difference. So, the technology. Before I dive into exactly what Dr. Yoon developed, let me give you some context on water purification. So water purification generally is any process that removes contaminants and impurities from water. But only a very extreme type of purification, called desalination, can remove the salt in addition to the impurities. And what an amazing thing to do. Over 70% of the Earth's surface is covered in water. There's a lot of water underground too, and most of that water is salty. In fact, of all the water that's available to us on Earth, less than 1% is both fresh, meaning not salty, and liquid. So desalination is a great solution. And yet, and it's been around a long time, and yet still 1 in 3 people today lack reliable access to water, and it's getting worse, as we covered. The original way to do desalination is evaporation or distillation. This is where you heat water till it turns to steam and then condense that steam. It's very energy intensive to do that. The way that almost all desalination is done today is reverse osmosis. This is the state of the art, invented in the 1970s. Reverse osmosis is more efficient than evaporation, but it still has some drawbacks. At the small scale, it's not very efficient because it takes super high pressure. It's basically a filtration process where you push water through a filter with pores small enough for only water molecules to fit through. The pressure required to do that is about 800 psi, which is like 13 times the pressure in your car or your bicycle tires. So pretty energy intensive. These filters, just like any filter, they clog, they need to be replaced. There's a lot of chemicals involved in this system to keep the water clean, keep the membranes clean, so they have to be changed less often. For these reasons I've described, desalination generally looks like this. Huge plants. And these plants are very expensive. billions of dollars like in this case. So that really limits the kinds of places that the plants can exist. They have to be near a large, wealthy population and a place with the political will to build something like this. In my former home state of California, for example, there's a lot of people, there's wealth, there's drought, and yet politicians routinely vote down the building of plants like this. It's a real problem. And that's just in addition to the technical factors that I mentioned. The solution to us is a new type of desalination, which works anywhere, at any scale. Could be big, could be small. We are commercializing a solution that is compact, less than 10 kilograms, smaller and lighter than 1 case of water bottles. It's reliable. It never needs a membrane or a filter replacement. It is efficient enough to support a family of 10 people with one small portable solar panel. And it's simple. It's as easy to use as a microwave and doesn't require any chemicals. Imagine if a solution like this had been deployed after Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico. Instead of shipping a huge pallet of water bottles, which could support one family for 1 month in the best case, a family could be issued a Nona device, which could provide water for them indefinitely with no risk of expiration. And it works when the power's off, totally off grid. So how does it work? Why can we make a device like this when current technologies, current competitors cannot? It's because of this technology that Dr. Yoon developed. Invented at MIT, we are using a multi-phase electromembrane process. It's called ion concentration polarization. I'll refer to it as ICP. And put very simply, it's an electromagnet, pulling salt and bacteria from water with electrical attraction. Because we're using this process, we never have to push water through a filter. We don't have to heat the water up. We work at super low pressure. Our device, which can provide enough water for a family, uses less power than your laptop charger. I personally am amazed at the beautiful simplicity of the solution, and I'm very excited about the possibilities that it unlocks. Dr. Yoon, interestingly, did not set out to create a new solution for the water shortage. Dr. Yoon was working with this technology to concentrate samples of viruses and bacteria to test for them more efficiently. He noticed in 2016 that as he was concentrating bacteria and viruses, that he was creating a large amount of a waste byproduct. And that waste byproduct, fresh, clean water. What an epiphany, right? From that point, he began optimizing for this use case, building prototypes, proof of concepts. And today, he's at the point where we have a working prototype that's been tested in real-world environments. Here he is at a beach near Boston, deploying the device. There you go. He drank the water. He's still with us. He's right over here, I promise. So it's an amazing technology, and we're really excited with the progress so far. But I want to refocus for just a moment on the problem that we're solving. This is the trend. This is the frequency of natural disasters in recent years. It's a big problem. Currently, it's affecting 188 million people per year, and that's just the disasters that directly affect water supply, droughts, floods, and the like. It is a big problem, no doubt, and we believe we can make a difference. But just as water shortage affects us in many different ways, we believe that our solution can be applied in many different ways. Let's talk about a few of them. Our first products will be deployed after disasters strike. They will be small, durable, rugged. They are also ideal for soldiers in the military who are now carrying water on their backs on their missions. We can let them stay out longer and carry less weight. Sailors who go offshore on long trips, plenty of sun, plenty of sea, no fresh water source. I mentioned that there are 2 billion people on Earth today who lack reliable access to clean drinking water. A quarter of those, 500 million people, are known to live near the coast in rural areas, far from those big desalination plants that I showed you. This is a perfect application for Nona, which works anywhere. Our friend Paul is one such person. He lives in Accra, Ghana. He can provide lower cost water to his family with Nona rather than relying on bottled water. He can also create jobs for entrepreneurs who want to operate these devices and distribute the water. In the home, we've talked to many who are building homes near the coast, have homes near the coast, or just some other source of salt water, and want to be secure in their water supply. And they don't have a good option today. So these first three use cases I've described, I think I can go back, constitute a scaling out of our technology. We also believe we can scale up to higher volume applications. One such application, farms. We've spoken to many farmers whose wells are turning salty. As the rain comes less often, farmers rely on groundwater, on their wells. And as you overuse a well, you overdrain an aquifer, they start to turn salty. It creates a low pressure zone that sucks in salt water from surrounding rock formations. They need a way to maintain food production. Desalination on site with Nona can be the answer. And it's lower cost than any existing alternative. Oil producers have a different kind of water problem. Oversupply. They have too much water. With hydraulic fracturing, for every 1 barrel of oil that comes out of the ground, 6 barrels of water come out of the ground. And it's mixed with oil, it's mixed with chemicals, and it's very salty. Today, it's handled often irresponsibly in a way that it's allowed to leach into groundwater from these open pools. With Nona, we can alleviate this environmental disaster, create a new water source for maybe a nearby farmer, and create another economic benefit for oil producers. Our vision is to create a more resilient society by increasing access to water. And we'll do this by allowing a shift from centralized water production, centralized desalination, to distributed desalination with this new innovative technology. Nona devices allow desalination to go from the plant to the small business, to the home, to the individual. We ultimately believe at Nona that there's no one solution to the world's water crisis. It's one of the biggest problems facing us. It's huge. We think the end solution is a collage of many different types of technologies with different attributes, combined with probably a more responsible use of water that we have access to. We believe Nona can fill some important gaps in this collage of technologies. Geographic gaps between these large desalination plants, gaps between the remote, the adventurers, and infrastructure, and ultimately the gap between thirst and hydration. We hope that we've inspired you with our drive to solve this problem. Please reach out to us if you're interested in joining our team or working with us in some way. I want to close by thanking LG for hosting us and for contributing to our shared vision to use technology to improve the world. It's a vision that we really care about. So much, in fact, that we're incorporated as a public benefit corporation, like Professor Chris mentioned. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bruce Crawford. Personally, it was very exciting just thinking about what kind of widespread impact Nona devices will have across the world, across all corners of life and all walks of life and all corners of the world. So thank you very much for that inspiring talk. All right, so all 4 teams have given their pitches. Now, this afternoon session is not the first time that they have delivered their presentations. They actually gave a closed-door presentation this morning to the judge panel. And they went through an intensive Q&A session. The judging panel have deliberated and arrived at their final decision. And in addition to the judging panel, the NGO B-Lab Korea, which evaluates and certifies each corporation's social and environmental responsibility, they also participated in the screening process to make Life's Good Award all that more fair and equal and based on real certification. Now, before we announce the final results, which I'm sure everyone is dying to hear, let's first hear from the judges. Speaking on behalf of the judging panel, please welcome Professor Christopher Marcus and Professor Alex Edmonds. Please welcome them onto the stage.
Thank you. It's great to be here and have the opportunity to share what the judging team really liked about the 4 finalists. So I'm going to share the 2 plastic-based solutions, and then Chris will talk about desalination and DOT. So I'll talk about Solutum and Day One Labs, and there's obviously many things in common, which meant that these were 2 really great innovations. So number 1, they're tackling a huge problem. So the plastic problem, we know how large it is at the moment, but this is something which is only going to grow significantly in the future. Number 2 is there are other solutions out there in terms of biodegradability. So this is not in itself not new. However, biodegradability requires some specific conditions. So it may be that it requires particular temperatures, so 58 plus or minus 2 degrees. It requires some microorganisms. It might require a certain level of humidity. And also, thirdly, what we really liked about both of the proposals was the flexibility. So it may well be that for certain applications you might want more resistance to water than others, and as a client you can decide what specifications of the plastic packaging to have so that it's more or less water resistant, takes longer or shorter a time in order to biodegrade. And so while both of the solutions had a lot of common attractions between them, there were also some specific attractions from each of the 2 individually that the judges really liked. So if I start with Day One Labs, it was something which is not biodegradable, but naturally degradable. So it's something that will naturally degrade if it's in contact with seawater or if it's in contact with soil. And number 2 is it's completely natural. It first uses seaweed, it comes from the ocean and ends up in the ocean. This is using natural raw materials to begin with, so it's a truly sustainable solution. In terms of Solutum, what the judging team really liked was just the ease of recycling. So it is one thing to make something recyclable, but this was something where you can just put it into a bucket, you can put it in a dishwasher. It's something where we can just do this as a household easily. It dissolves in water at an ambient temperature. Also, we like the idea of focus. So this solution might not replace every single plastic out there. For example, something soluble might not, at the moment, replace plastic bottles. But what is purpose? It's not trying to solve every single problem, but focusing on specific applications. And so the idea of plastic film, that's really important because plastic bottles, there are ways currently of recycling them, but they've started with something which is non-recyclable. Now, maybe later, they might expand it to other uses of plastic, but they've started with what we feel to be something particularly urgent right now. Okay, so I'll hand over to Chris for the 2 other ideas.
And so while we really liked the plastics for having it be such an important issue, you see it in the news a lot, you see pictures of the oceans with these floating islands of plastic. The other 2 teams actually focused on areas that were not necessarily as visible, and we found their solutions to also be quite compelling. So DOT, you have the issue of people with disabilities, visually impaired, that is really, in many cases, a forgotten population, stigmatized in many cases around the world. It was amazing to me when I learned that actually there had not been any innovation really in this technology for 40 years. I think that alone speaks to the fact that entrepreneurs, businesses are not actually focused on this issue like they probably should be. So this was a real significant area that we appreciated in the DOT. Also, we know they've been working on it for almost 10 years, or perhaps over 10 years. So the passion and commitment of these entrepreneurs to develop these devices, which, you can see the hardware component of it, which actually very similar to a traditional Braille reader on the bottom, but also on the top can visualize, through sort of the haptic technology, you can sort of touch what many people would be seeing to and in many ways render images to people that had never seen things like signatures or other pictures. So that was quite important. But also the software component, which didn't come through as much in the presentation, but when I was talking to the entrepreneurs themselves, this idea of actually taking visual images and translating them through software into something that could be felt is another important innovation. And if you think about this idea of actually being able to, if you're visually impaired, engage with materials in the world. Sure, there's some things that you can listen to nowadays, but things like math and other visual type of materials, think about learning and working without actually being able to engage in that. And so I think that that's a big social impact that DOT has. Nanotechnologies. Also, water may be a little more visible than, issues with people with disabilities and visually impaired. However, I think that we're so concerned about, carbon neutrality, climate, air pollution. I think water issues are frequently forgotten as well. And I think this is something over the next decades will become more and more salient. Obviously, droughts we're seeing in this technology will be very important. You have disasters where in Puerto Rico, for instance, water systems were destroyed. So you need decontamination, desalinization, and other applications like in the United States, there's cities like Jackson, Mississippi, and Flint that actually there's corruption in some ways of the water system, so that you need to deliver safe and secure water. So this is something where also we see a huge need going forward, and the system that the entrepreneurs have developed is really very innovative because it takes a different way, not necessarily through reverse osmosis, which is frequently used, or just boiling and having evaporation happen, but a new way of thinking about desalinization and decontamination of water, and then actually having it in a portable form so that it can be used in a variety of applications from, I think they're using some military applications, disaster applications, and so that's some of the things we found very compelling about Nona Technologies.
All right, thank you very much, Professor Marcus and Professor Edmonds. Please give them a big round of applause. All right, let's now begin the official award ceremony of Life's Good Awards. There are 4 finalists and 4 awards. We have the Grand Prix, and then gold, silver, and bronze. To award the bronze and silver prizes, I would like to invite back up onto the stage the head of Global Marketing Center of LG Electronics, Mr. Chong-Seok Lee. Please greet him with a big hand. All right, let's start with the Bronze Award. The Bronze Award winner will receive $50,000 as prize money. Mr. Chong-Seok Lee, please announce the Bronze Award winner.
Okay, the bronze goes to Nona Technology.
Congratulations, Nona Technologies.
Congratulations.
Please come forward to the stage and receive your prize and award. Developed by MIT graduates, Nona Technologies gives people access to clean water at an affordable price. Its breakthrough technology addresses the unprecedented water crisis that the world faces and allows for multiple applications thanks to its compatibility. We believe that what Nona Technologies can offer has the greatest power to bring a better life for all. Everyone, please join me in congratulating Nona Technologies. All right, Nona Technologies, you have won the Bronze Award. While we are taking the final shots, we are going to ask you for the acceptance speech. Please tell us how you feel.
Well, we just feel thrilled and honored. It was a huge reward just to be here, and to go home with a cash prize is important. This will make a big difference for us in our development. We're a young company. We don't have outside funding, so this will be really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Once again, Nona Technologies, please give them a big hand as they return to their seats. All right, we will now announce the Silver Award winner. This team will receive $100,000 as prize money. Mr. Lee, please make your announcement.
The silver goes to Day One Lab.
Congratulations, Day One Lab. Envisioning a world without plastic waste in the ocean, Day One Lab are scientists, entrepreneurs, and pioneers to end the plastic problem. With its signature product Inocean, which is made of natural products with uncompromised quality of a regular plastic, yet completely biodegradable in salt water, we firmly believe their solution can be the true game changer to end the plastic issue. Please look forward at the cameras. All right, congratulations. Please tell us how you feel.
We appreciate LG Electronics giving us for the opportunity to share our visions and also our technologies. We will continuously develop our technology for a better future. Thank you.
Now, all right, please give them another big round of applause. Congratulations to Day One Lab. All right, this means that we have 2 awards left. The winners of the Grand Prix and Gold Awards. The Gold Award winner will receive $200,000 as prize, while the Grand Prix winner will receive $700,000. So let's welcome the 2 companies up onto the stage, Dot Inc. and Salutem. Please welcome them with a big hand. The Grand Prix and Gold Prizes will be awarded by the CSO of LG Electronics, Mr. Sam-Soo Lee. Please welcome Mr. Sam-Soo Lee. All right, this is the big announcement. Mr. Sam-Soo Lee, please announce the Grand Prix winner.
All right. Grand Prix goes to Dot Inc.
Dot Inc. Congratulations! Dot Inc. is the Grand Prix winner, which means the Gold Award winner is Salutem. Congratulations to both for your innovative solutions. Dot Inc., please step forward. You won a prize of $700,000. With a great team of passionate yet mission-driven entrepreneurs to solve one of the world's greatest challenges, to enable equal access to information for the visually impaired, Dot Inc. is going far beyond to serve the people with disability. Dot Inc.'s extended application of the technology will serve more than 280 million of visually impaired population in the world. Congratulations, Dot Inc., once again the Grand Prix winner of Life's Good Award. Thank you very much. Before we ask for your acceptance speech, we will award the Gold Award to Salutem. Please step forward. Congratulations, Salutem. Please give them a big round of applause. With its cutting-edge technology to create plastic solution that is completely biodegradable in water at a predetermined time, Salutem offers a truly innovative yet unique solution to end the plastic issue. Okay, once more. Congratulations, Salutem. Thank you very much. Mr. Sam-Soo Lee, thank you very much for awarding the prizes, and you may return to your seats. Let's hear from the two teams. Let's listen to Dot Inc. and Salutum's acceptance speeches. I'm sure they do have many people they would like to thank. We will pass the mic over to the Gold Award winner first, Salutum.
Well, I'm very excited, almost speechless. Thank you so much for LG. I want to thank our team back home in Israel that are supporting us from far away. Thank you everyone for helping us to achieve yet another milestone on our way to have a much better and cleaner planet. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate this opportunity, LG. So it's such an honor being here and getting the Grand Prix. So we're very looking forward to collaborating with LG to impact the world for the people with disability. Yeah, so it's an honor. So let's make the world accessible together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ki Kwang Song. Mr. Eric Chiyun Kim, would you like to say a few words? For every single person up on the stage today is a very joyous occasion, so please join them and give them a big round of applause once again. Congratulations, everyone. Okay, we will do the fighting pose. Salutum, Day One Lab, Dot, and Nona, congratulations, and thank you very much for contributing to a better world with your innovative solutions. Thank you very much. All right, everyone, please return to your seats. We will continue with the photographs in just a while. And that brings us to the end of Life's Good Award, LG Electronics initiative to discover and promote innovative solutions for a better world, a better society, and a better future for our planet. A future where we can truly, well and truly say that life is good. Once again, on behalf of LG Electronics, I would like to extend my sincerest gratitude to each and every participant here, both on-site and online via YouTube, for taking precious time out of your busy schedules to join us. On behalf of LG Electronics, this has been your host, 서 미소랑. Thank you very much and goodbye. 고맙습니다.